Right. Joining us now is Miss Grace Yang, Gray Robinson law firm in Florida. Grace is a shareholder there, offices out of the Tampa office. She and her team have a significant practice that includes multi-state alcohol, food licensing, and compliance issues. As you can see, they're involved in all types of aspects, the development of retail locations, including quick service and fast casual stores. But they're real knit. They do all of those things. But I think the most impressive part about their team is how well they manage large scale mergers and acquisitions when licensing, especially in the alcohol space and or food space, becomes so important and time sensitive. They just do a remarkable job of that. We've had Grace speak to our audiences on several occasions. We love to have her join us. Today, she's talking about licensing ghost kitchens. Welcome back, Grace.
Thank you so much for the introduction. So I am happy to be joining you all. Thank you for tuning in. Let's start with a brief discussion of how a ghost kitchen is defined. So on this slide, because I don't know if everybody knows what a ghost kitchen is, they are becoming more popular, but here's a definition of a ghost kitchen. They are also sometimes known as delivery-only restaurants, a virtual kitchen, a shadow kitchen, a commissary kitchen, a cloud kitchen, a dark kitchen. These are professional grade food preparation and cooking facilities, which are set up for delivery only meals, delivery only takeaway sort of meals. They may also have drive-through capability in some locations, but not all. They usually don't include any sort of a public storefront with very visible signage proclaiming and announcing what they are. So there's no prominent sign that's out there. There's usually no seating, whether inside the ghost kitchen or in that space. It's a small space. They're different because they are self-contained spaces for chefs and cooks to be able to prepare food and meals for either takeaway or carry out. And if we go to the next slide, these are just some examples of ghost kitchens that you may have heard of. These are some examples of some ghost kitchen concepts. I'll also say that I didn't put this on the slide, but Wendy's is another operator that has multiple bricks and mortar locations. And Wendy's has also tried to experiment and work on some ghost kitchen locations as a way to allow it to branch out for more delivery of its Wendy's products to customers in a surrounding area. On the next slide, you'll see that these are some of the benefits of a ghost kitchen. Because you don't have any customer seating, the ghost kitchen is taking up less space, less square footage. So you're saving on renting space because there's no dining area inside your business. So you're paying lower rent, and there's also lower overhead cost, less square footage to furnish, to heat or cool down. A ghost kitchen, another advantage is that you have fewer staff. There is no front of house. There are no hosts who are walking you to a table. And so you have fewer staff that you need to operate under a ghost kitchen type of a model. You're not paying for costs for any hard copy menus, no interior decoration, no signage inside, outside, no furniture. Your costs for menus are really just based on either online presence, whether it's through a mobile app or an online website, allowing your customers to order from you. We think ghost kitchens are a pandemic solution. We think they're going to remain after COVID. It's to be seen how many of these ghost kitchens will continue, whether it's going to be a growing growing list of ghost kitchens or whether it might shrink based on people who are kind of missing out and want to go back to a dine-in experience. But there are a lot of technology companies and food service industry companies which are leaning into allowing more digital services, allowing better mobile ordering experiences and mobile pay experiences. And there is going to, we think, remain a certain segment of customers who really like to be able to order their food to go, have it delivered, or have the convenience of being able to pick it up and take it away to eat somewhere else. On the next slide, these are some of the logistical issues to think about when you're setting up a ghost kitchen. Some ghost kitchens are using an underutilized traditional kitchen. So unfortunately, because of COVID and during the pandemic, a lot of bricks and mortar restaurants had to go dark. And by going dark, there may be kitchens in a traditional bricks and mortar location that is not being used very much. And a ghost kitchen operation might be set up inside that space. Another way that ghost kitchen spaces can be set up is through an untraditional space from a landlord that might have a garage or a self-contained pod. You may be in a market where you have seen some of these self-contained containers with power generators and mounted AC units. And inside there is a built-out kitchen with burners and shelves ready for a cook to be able to do food prep in that area. Both types of these models will rely heavily on delivery services. Uber Eats and DoorDash are two very popular names, but there are many others, and they're using delivery services for mobile ordering fulfillment and being able to deliver the product away from the ghost kitchen. Some ghost kitchens do allow pickup options as well, but they are mostly delivery focused. Next slide. We're going to talk about some of these licensing models for liquor licensing, but I'll say that because of the reliance on the delivery models, there are costs associated for a ghost kitchen operator. There are delivery fees, there are costs that you have to invest for takeout containers and bags. Oftentimes, if a delivery order is not correct, the customer will complain to the ghost kitchen operator. If the delivery is slow, they'll usually complain to the ghost kitchen operator and not necessarily the third-party delivery provider. Also keep in mind that depending on your location, traffic and parking, curbside parking, curbside delivery and pickup may become an issue. So we'll go into some of these models. For ghost kitchens that are food and non-alcohol, it's a bit of a more simple model than once you introduce alcohol into it. Because of our alcohol practice, we sometimes do get consulted on liquor licensing for ghost kitchens, and that's what I'm going to talk about here. The first model that we sometimes see is this hybrid model, where the ghost kitchen is inside that traditional restaurant with an underutilized kitchen. And perhaps that restaurant has an on-premises liquor license that's attached to it. Because the ghost kitchens are for takeaway and for delivery away from the kitchen, if you want to be able to sell alcohol in combination with a food order, it's very important that you make sure that the alcohol to go and delivery is allowed by that local municipality. Because if that local municipality does not allow alcohol to go in conjunction with the license currently at that property, you risk a code enforcement violation. You can also check with that hybrid model if there's a catering license that might be available, and that catering license might allow you some flexibility to do alcohol to go with your order. an additional business name might need to be registered with the local permitting and health authorities as well. These ghost kitchens and how they are properly set up, it's going to be very location specific. And so it's really important that you check and do the research on what the local zoning code, local building codes, and local licensing and permitting requirements are if you want to have a ghost kitchen. Finally, under this scenario, will that local jurisdiction allow 2 or more brands to share in that space? Ghost kitchens, while they are becoming more popular, are still an unknown to some municipalities. And so you might have health inspectors, zoning inspectors, and other local authorities who you might need to educate on how you're trying to set up your ghost kitchen operations. We'll talk about a second kind of a model that's also something that we will see. And this second model is based on that more untraditional space where you're not doing a ghost kitchen in an underutilized bricks and mortar space, but you might be in a standalone self-contained space. This could be a garage. It could be a really nicely built out self-contained food kitchen, or it might be in a bigger food hall where you have many different kinds of businesses operating under that space. Again, be careful if you are going to offer alcohol to go and delivery, be careful that it's permitted by the local jurisdiction. If you are going to have alcohol as a component of the business. Alcohol to go from a ghost kitchen is not going to be allowed in all locations, so be sure to check. During the pandemic, businesses received greater flexibility with alcohol to go because even the bricks and mortar traditional restaurants had to close down for some period of time, and they relaxed the laws a little bit, either on a temporary basis or on a more permanent basis. But especially for ghost kitchens, be careful about checking what those local requirements are to determine if you are allowed to do alcohol to go with a ghost kitchen operation. Same thing if there's a package store license, meaning package sales, not on-premise consumption. Will that jurisdiction allow you to do it? Because under the package alcohol licenses, some jurisdictions may say that your business has to be open to the general public, that you have to be open for hours of operation to the general public. And ghost kitchens are not places where people are coming in and out. You don't have foot traffic going into a ghost kitchen space. So that also requires a little bit of careful local analysis. Finally, if you are going to have alcohol as a component and you're not planning to store the alcohol in that ghost kitchen or in that licensed space, but you're planning to store the alcohol in a separate area, a separate storage area, some local and state jurisdictions may require that you apply for an off-site storage permit or some other sort of a permit that will allow you to legally store that alcohol away from the ghost kitchen site. The next slide, we'll talk about some of these licensing challenges again. You might have restrictions on your licensed premises that you're trying to occupy, especially if it's a bricks and mortar location. Check with the landlord, check with the lease. Will a ghost kitchen be allowed as a permissible use? What kind of requirements is your landlord going to ask of you to be able to operate in that space? And again, I touched on this earlier, but zoning is going to be important. Will the zoning in that space allow you to operate as a ghost kitchen? Some local municipalities may have very specific conditions that they want you to meet in order to comply with what they see as local zoning requirements to operate a ghost kitchen. Local municipalities often also have concerns about traffic or about parking issues that might be exacerbated by a ghost kitchen. As far as applications of different licensing requirements, the two big ones that we want to identify for you are, number one, employee restrictions related to the age and the service function. So depending on your municipality, there may be age restrictions saying that if somebody is preparing an order and taking an order for the alcohol, they might have to be a minimum age. It might be 17, it might be 18, might be 21. Also, if you are going to be selling alcohol to customers through a ghost kitchen, just like any retailer of alcohol, make sure that you are verifying the age of the customer, that customer is 21 or over and is of legal drinking age. Another key thing to flag are square footage requirements. Ghost kitchens are usually much smaller in square footage than a more traditional bricks and mortar business. And in some municipalities, the type of liquor license that is conditioned to that building or to that kind of a use may require that there be a minimum amount of square footage. And you may or may not be able to qualify as a ghost kitchen operator to hold a particular kind of a license or sell under a particular kind of alcohol license if that license requires that you maintain a certain minimum square footage for the business. Next, these are the final takeaways that I will offer to you all to consider. It's very important to think about that property use. These are unique types of business models. While some jurisdictions are getting more familiar with the idea and the concept of ghost kitchens, it may require you to educate other municipalities about what you are trying to accomplish with a ghost kitchen operation. Think about those operational logistics. Where do you want to be located? Do you have good access to delivery services in that area? Is your ghost kitchen location located in a place where it's going to be convenient and easy for the delivery drivers to come up and pick up the orders? How much space do you need to store and be able to work in the space that you want? Is the space big enough to accommodate comfortably the people who are cooking the food and fulfilling those orders? Are you going to be in an area that is going to appeal and be able to drive that business for your deliveries? How are you going to get the word out and publicize your ghost kitchen? Again, these ghost kitchens do not usually have any sort of prominent signage. And so how are you going to have a good, robust online presence and connect with existing and potential customers to build your ghost kitchen brand? Think finally about those governing authorities. Be sure to really be careful about exploring how to operate legally for the kind of business that you're trying to do. If you are not selling alcohol and just merely focused on food, it's going to be simpler than once you introduce an alcohol component into this. Once you introduce an alcohol component into this, you need to be careful about looking at what the current license in that space will allow, what kind of permitting is there, and if that's going to be a feasible model for you, either under a traditional bricks and mortar location or in a more untraditional type of a container. I think I have some time for questions. If anybody has any, these are very interesting, and I'm curious to see how the ghost kitchen industry continues to develop with bricks and mortar locations as well.
Yeah, it's a fascinating area, Grace. Thank you very much for clarifying a lot of these aspects. My first question is, I want to connect the dots a little bit between zoning, alcohol beverage permitting, and you know that oftentimes for a mixed beverage permit or on-premise consumption, we have distance restrictions. In other words, you have to be so many feet from a school, from a church, et cetera, in some jurisdictions. But since the alcohol isn't being consumed on the premises, and we're not actually buying it at the premises, it's being delivered someplace else. Have you seen any discussions around that, or have the ordinances you've seen that allow this delivery of alcohol, have they addressed that issue?
So this is a new area. I think based on what we've been doing with clients, there's still a lot of gray. There's still a lot of gray area in this. Only some municipalities are actually formalizing through code and ordinances how they want to really look at and license and permit these ghost kitchens. You're right that for alcohol, there are often considerations about distances from schools, from houses of worship, from residential areas. We even have some municipalities that will say you can't be too close to public parks, or you can't be too close to an alcohol rehab center. And so this is where locating your ghost kitchens really needs to be a very location-specific type of an analysis. There are some companies that will help a ghost kitchen operator with analyzing some of these issues. So there are some ghost kitchen chain operators that will say, as part of their service, they will try to help locate good ghost kitchen locations. They will help with some of these logistics to make sure that you as an operator feel comfortable stepping into a location that's properly licensed, that meets those zoning requirements. But it's going to really vary by location. And some locations are still not quite sure how to regulate a ghost kitchen and how to license them.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see how this develops. Grace, does your firm, does the Gray Robinson firm in your practice space, do you guys assist in negotiating with the delivery companies? I'm not even sure will they negotiate? And if so, do you guys assist in those processes?
I personally have not been engaged in trying to negotiate the delivery fees, the commission fees. Yeah, I haven't. We do interact with some of the third-party logistics companies, the delivery companies, and I'm really not sure. I don't have a good personal sense about whether there is or isn't some way to negotiate the commissions. I think the bigger you are, the bigger a company you are, the more you might be able to negotiate, but I'm really not sure if anybody has had a lot of activity with trying to negotiate the fees. And those delivery fees can be a significant percentage. And that's something that a ghost kitchen operator has to bear in mind for the costs. I am wondering, with the increase in gas prices, we heard from Dale about all the unrest in Ukraine and in the current conflict over there. I'm wondering if the gas price increases are going to cause the delivery fees to go up even more than they already are right now.
Yeah, it's a big chunk right now for sure. You're right. So you raised an issue about having to have an online, robust online presence, right? Because we don't have signage, we don't have the typical traditional marketing. But that raises a question for me, because you guys do a lot of work in the alcohol promotion space, right? And the 3-tier concepts, and right, one will not step on the other's toes, et cetera, participate. But how about the applications? Are you finding that, I'm assuming, let me just ask it this way, the promotional restrictions, they stay in effect for your application, right? Because I'm thinking a lot of people will try to promote alcohol or get some assistance in promoting their alcohol or building their application. I may be getting a little deeper than you want to clarify on a webinar, but Can you address that just for a little bit?
Sure. What you're talking about is this three-tier system. So we've got three tiers in the alcohol industry. We've got the manufacturer or supplier tier, the wholesale distributor tier, and the retail tier. And we have in the business what we call tied house laws and tied house restrictions that say in order to maintain the independence among the three tiers, a retailer, for example, is not supposed to accept things of value, including money, from wholesale distributors or manufacturers of alcohol. Now, what's interesting is that even though there's this general prohibition, there are a lot of different carve-outs. There are a lot of different carve-outs. There are a lot of different exceptions. It's very fact-specific. And this is where we as lawyers, including Elizabeth DeConti and myself and others on the team, we have to really look at what is being offered and whether a retailer of alcohol may legally accept something in order to try to promote those brands, in order to try to promote those alcohol products. It's going to be very fact specific, and it's going to sometimes vary state by state. Different states have their own tied house laws and their own carve-out exceptions for those tied house laws. So if there are people listening in on the webinar, it is an area of concern, and it's for alcohol retailers to be careful in their interactions with the wholesale distributor tier and with the manufacturer or supplier tier.
And just to be clear, I think everybody gets it, Grace, but the ghost kitchen folks that are delivering alcohol, they're going to be classified as a retailer, even though it's not on-premise consumption.
That's right. So sometimes if you are only doing package sales of alcohol, but you are a retailer, you are still subject to some of those tied house restrictions.
Yeah, Grace, this has been terrific. Thank you very much.
Thank
You
you.
and your team do a great job. Ladies and gentlemen, Grace Yang.